And welcome back to some of the Cooler Jets podcast. We're hosts Ben Blessington and Michael Nania. Well, Michael, Jets just wrapped up their first game of the season, the Hall of Fame game. First loss of the season, unfortunately. First loss for Robert Sala's preseason tender. But overall, pretty good game, I'd say. I mean, maybe not from a viewer standpoint, but from a Jets perspective, I think you got some good Zach Wilson moments, some good moments from the rookies. No major injuries, at least that have come out so far. And I mean, they kind of got screwed by the stadium lights going out, and then they gave up the lead at the end. But overall, I mean, pretty solid debut for the 2023 season, I would say. We'll go and I guess go through a bunch of different players and talk about how they performed. Then we'll get out of here. Just a quick recap podcast. But first, Michael, how are you doing, man?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty tired. It's 11:39 right now, and we just made an attempt, I guess you can call it, to do a Twitter Spaces for the first time with some mixed results.
Oh,
I had some technical difficulties, but you did your best to hold it down,
uh,
so I give you credit for that. You did a
it
good
was
job. You
tough.
did a good job. But maybe we'll go back to it, maybe we won't, but if we do, at least we'll have some more reps and experience.
Shout
But
out Jaguar.
yeah, diehard Cool Your Jets fan. He brought the energy, but yeah, I mean, preseason is underway. Obviously, the extra Hall of Fame game, which it's going to be weird this preseason having 4 games versus the 3 we got used to over the last couple preseasons. So it's going to feel a little bit longer than what we've become accustomed to. But I'm looking forward to getting into the film and all that because I'll be honest, watching these games, it's a grind. It's definitely a grind because there's no stakes to it. It's hard to
Come
really
on.
see what's going on the
We
broadcast. You
can't
don't
we
know
can't complain
all these
all summer.
players.
We can't complain all summer about no
No, I'm not
football,
complaining.
and then we get some
I'm happy
football,
to have
and
football
then you
back,
complain it's
but
boring. It was stress
it's
free.
boring.
It's
Let's
stress
be
free
real.
though.
It's boring. It's stress free, but it's not
Stress
exhilarating.
free
I think the
Jets
fun part
football.
is watching when it's over and really diving into it.
That's fun too. But
But there's plenty to take away. There's plenty to take away. But 8 o'clock Hall of Fame game, more 3 quarters without Zach Wilson. It's you got to fight a little bit to get through it.
that's such a lame take from you. But you know what? I get what you're saying. Hall of Fame game is always underwhelming, but you know, it's Jets football. Stress free Jets football. We got to watch Zach Wilson play. We got to watch Mekhi Becton. Some of these
Okay, you
rookies.
weren't even paying attention for so much that
Yeah, because your
second
mic kept cutting out in the spaces that I was working overtime trying to keep the listeners engaged. But
That's fair.
no, I did not watch much of the second half. I'll be honest. I mean, it was on, but it took me like 5 minutes into the delay to be like, wait, why is the game stopped? So you're right. The value in these games is generally going back and watching the All-22 and trying. Well, did they even release the All-22 for preseason?
I'm not
On
sure.
Game
Yeah.
Pass. They didn't. I don't think they released all 22 on Game Pass, but at least just going back, focusing on individual players and trying to get a sense of how they played. From first glance, though, Michael, I guess we can give our initial thoughts. I'll run through some players here. The player that you can probably most accurately give a grade on would be Zach Wilson. Only played the first quarter. They stuck to that. He had the nice deep ball to Malik Taylor. He looked a little calmer in the pocket, went through his progressions, but still, he slipped on third down. Otherwise, looked like it was about to be a nice play, but fell down on that third down. He had a ball batted down. So two kind of fluky things. And then he had I don't know if it was a throwaway or an errant pass to Xavier Gibson. But from what you saw from Zach, not too much to dive into, but what would you make of his performance?
I thought it was okay. I mean, I think some of the things we talked about when we were previewing this game, he did show some of those things. We want to see poise, we want to see better decision making process, and some of those little things that could translate to a real game. And I thought he showed some of that. I think we saw some examples of him standing tight in the pocket, or hanging tight in the pocket and standing tall in instances where maybe previously he would have ran around, tried to make something happen. I thought he took a couple checkdowns that were the right play. There was one pass that got deflected, and then there was one play where he tried to scramble and he tripped, which was unfortunate. But it seemed like he was making the right decision to try and scramble. Didn't work out, unfortunately. But process-wise, I thought he did a pretty good job. And then the one deep shot he hit to Malik Taylor was, I mean, that's one of the best throws he's ever made in the league. Definitely the best vertical
Yeah,
deep
we talked
throw
about that in the
in
spaces.
structure that he's
We
made.
talked about that
So
on the spaces.
yeah.
How I don't think he's completed a single 9 route his entire career, like from the pocket, outside of maybe that underthrown ball to Mims against New England last year. But every other big play he's had has been him rolling out of structure. So that was nice to see. That's progress.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think there was much he could do in this game or even the whole preseason to definitively prove that he's a significantly improved quarterback because remember how good he looked in his first preseason. You ultimately can't ever guarantee anything based off the preseason, but if you struggle, you can be worried about that. So I don't think he struggled in this game, and if he can just continue doing that, then you could feel at least okay about him going into the season. But there were some good signs in this one. It was a very short appearance,
Yeah,
so we'll see if he can continue to build on some of
yeah.
that.
What do you make of Salah? I don't want to say pulling him, but only playing him the first quarter. It kind of felt like I kind of felt like he was going to get one more series just because he had done some good things. They had some drives. They'd put 6 points on the board. And then it just kind of felt like, okay, they're getting close. Give him one more series. See if you can get a touchdown and get out of there. What did you make of that decision?
I mean, I think coaches kind of treat this Hall of Fame game as, maybe the number one game for avoid, maybe aside from the last game, for, playing your backups and your reserve players over the starters. Because, especially at this point, since they moved to 3 games, it's an extra game that you're not supposed to have. So I think they are averse to taking risks beyond, what they really feel like they have to. So I expected more. I thought he was going to play maybe the whole first half. I definitely thought Becton was going to play more. So it was less than I expected, but I do understand. This is an extra game that most of the league isn't playing. So let's not take risks beyond, what we definitely feel like we need to.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say is the last game, at least if we're going off of last year, and then what Salah said in the post game or in the press conferences, it's like a week ago. That last game against the Giants, I guess now is a little bit more of the dress rehearsal. So I guess it's like the second, or this year would be the third game, is kind of more the backups. But like you said, like this is an extra game for the Jets. They didn't really play any of their starters. The only guys who were seeing time that are will play is Mitchell is maybe a starter. Seems like he's on that path. Jamin Sherwood, maybe not technically a starter considering they play nickel a lot, but he's one of their 3 starting linebackers. And then some of the edge guys that were rotating in, like Huff and Jermaine Johnson and Clemens. We'll get to those guys. But last thing on Zach, I mean, I think I would have liked to see him another series, but at the same time, I understand what they're doing. I think they're slowly trying to rebuild his confidence. And yes, it would have been nice to put him back out there and for him to lead a touchdown drive and to have that high note. But he also could have gone back out there and gotten injured or thrown an interception or done something like that, where it's like, he played the first quarter. Was he perfect? Was he Superman? No, but he didn't look like he was trying to do it all. He had some nice plays, something to build on. His confidence should be up after this game. So I kind of understand why he did it. Also, Becton had just gotten pulled out of the game too, and I think that they were maybe feeling like maybe they shouldn't keep Zach behind Carter Warren. I guess we can run through some of these players, but before we do that, I guess we should focus on Becton for a second here because, like you said, we thought he'd play a little bit more. We knew he was going to be on a snap count. Salah said 20 to 25 snaps. I think he ended up playing 7 and then a few for field goals. Just reading what Becton was saying in the post game, it was that he didn't really trust the turf at the stadium, which I don't blame him. I mean, I remember the game got canceled in like 2016 because of the turf. And he just said he's not hurt, but he just felt a little bit pregame, and then he just decided to pull himself from the game. But from what you did see from Becton, though, I felt like he played pretty well. I mean, extremely small sample size, but we haven't seen him in 2 years. So, what did you make of Becton's first appearance since that Carolina game?
Yeah, actually, right now I'm clipping some of the play or all of the plays that he had in this
Man, you're
game because it was a
multitasking?
short. I'm multitasking right now. Short appearance, only 7 snaps. So don't read into it too much. Like that. That's not even a whole drive. Or if it's a long drive, it could be
With
less
Aaron
than a whole
Rodgers,
drive.
that's a
With
that's
Aaron
a whole
Rodgers, it's
touchdown drive.
less than a drive. So small sample. But like you said, he hasn't played in 2 years. To see him out there at all is great, and then to see him go out there and play well is great. Is even greater on top of that. So it's preseason competition. He was not playing against starters in this one, but you want to see him look dominant against inferior competition because he's not supposed to be playing in this game talent wise. It's just the durability that's put him in this position. So it's good to see him playing up to the level he's supposed to. I thought in pass protection, he looked really sharp. There was one play that stood out where he kind of gets beat initially, gives up a step around the corner, but he uses that length to recover and push the guy up the arc and past the quarterback, which is, I think, the best skill that he could have in pass protection. And what could make him really good as a pass blocker if he develops is that length because it allows him to recover. Sometimes you're going to get beat, and you need to be able to limit the damage when that happens. When you have length like that, you can recover. And he showed that on that one play, it really stood out. And then on Zach Wilson's touchdown, he stood his guy up and held the pocket pretty clean. Allow that, or not touchdown, the deep bomb. He allowed that to happen. So he had some good plays. Then in the run blocking, he had a couple snaps and he created pretty good lateral movement on those. So it was pretty flawless game. But again, we're talking about 7 snaps here, so you don't want to read into it too much. But just see him out there is great, and he looked good.
Yeah, and you mentioned that one third down where Zach ended up scrambling, and how that's something that Becton does really well in terms of like if he gets beat, he can run rushers around the edge. That's not really something you could do as much in practice because you're not trying to steer the edge defender into the quarterback, especially if you're blocking for Aaron Rodgers. So I think Becton. I think there is some truth to the fact that Becton is going to be better on game days than he's ever going to be on the practice field. That's not to say that you can't read into some of the struggles that he's had on the practice field, but like you said, felt like he looked good. You mentioned it to me before we recorded or anything, but it's like Becton looked good in the 2021 preseason before he got hurt when he was struggling on that training camp. So, the real test with Becton will be regular season snaps. First of all, can he get through a whole game? Because clearly that he doesn't have the same confidence in that knee that maybe we were expecting because it's been 2 years. He got injured a year ago around this time. I think we kind of all expected him to come into camp and be a full go. And yes, while he didn't begin the season on the PUP list, it's clear that he's not 100% on that knee yet. He's still trying to build up confidence in it. I mean, we'll see if the MetLife turf is any better than it's been. But if this turf is giving him problems, he's got to play 8 games at MetLife this year, 9 games at MetLife this year. We got to see him make it through a full regular season game first, see him against starters before we can really take anything away from it. But I agree with you. I liked his performance. So yeah, let's just run through a few players here, Michael, and you give me your thoughts on their performances, and then we'll get out of here. Won't make this a super long podcast. Izzy Abanikanda, he's been getting a lot of the love on Twitter. He scored the only touchdown from this game for the Jets. Showed some nice speed on that play. Had a few other nice plays. What did you make of Abanikanda? Is this just more propaganda for your anti-Dalvin Cook rhetoric?
It definitely helps in that. I think for sure to have people get on board with Izzy and just kind of having him potentially be that rookie running back standout because there are so many of them every year, aren't there? Like rookie
Yeah.
guys out of the third day of the draft who just have 1,000 yards randomly, and they're on your fantasy team by the end of the year. So it happens a lot. So if he's gonna, not that Izzy's gonna have 1,000 yards,
He,
but if he could be a day 3 hit, you know, helps your case to not needing a veteran running back. But yeah, the touchdown run was really nice. He showed good speed to hit that edge. Um, Joe Blewett said in one of his film reviews, he called Izzy an angle eraser, which I think is a good way to describe what he did on that play. Is using that speed to just beat, even if the defender's taking an anticipatory angle to get out in front of you, just having so much speed to beat him to that spot, beat him to the pylon and get that touchdown. And then I thought, other than that, he didn't really produce much, but I liked the way he finished some of his runs. He was putting his head down, showing some power, grinding out some extra yards at the end of those runs. So, it wasn't really blocked well, which preseason run blocking is usually really ugly. It's probably the ugliest part of preseason games. I mean, how many times do you see great rushing in the preseason? It's pretty rare. So, not a lot to work with, but I liked how he finished some of his runs.
yeah, it was interesting that they didn't give any reps to Zonovan Knight or Michael Carter either. They were both inactive for this game. What do you make of that? Is that a signal to you that they're comfortable with this running back room and that those two guys are going to be playing a lot early in the season? Is that a signal that hey, maybe Michael Carter could be traded if they bring in Dalvin Cook. They don't want to risk him getting injured. Or is it nothing? Is it just a Hall of Fame game? Why not give Abanikanda and why not give the rookies most of the reps? How do you kind of read into that decision?
I think you can read into it a little bit, right? Because the fact that they're both not playing probably says both players are safe, right? And I think,
Maybe.
if Cook were coming in and you assume that Izzy's a lock, considering he's a rookie, 5th round pick, probably not getting cut. Although, maybe it's not a 0% chance,
Oh,
but
come
it's
on.
probably
Get
not
out of here.
happening.
He's making the team. 4th round pick.
0.1% chance. I don't know.
0% chance.
Ja'Kai Pillay got cut as the 3rd round pick.
Okay,
Completely different
that is
situation.
true.
But
But yes,
point one, can I say point
fine.
one?
0.1% chance he gets cut.
He's not getting cut. So Izzy, if you sign Cook, Brees Hall, then one of Knight and Carter wouldn't make the team. So if they're both not playing in this game and you're assuming they're both safe because of that, does that say that maybe Cook's not coming? I don't know. I'm
Or
just
or
that could be a possibility.
I think they don't want to risk Donovan Knight getting injured because if you listen to Robbie, he's been the best running back in camp, assuming Brees has been out. So I think Carter's the guy that's out if Cook signs here. And I think Carter has enough fans around the league that maybe they could fetch something for him, a late day 3 pick for him, conditional day 3 pick. And if he goes out there and gets injured, you can't trade him. Or, maybe you lose some leverage in terms of trying to get Dalvin Cook either way, if running back gets injured. So extra game. Carter's played plenty. I guess Knight has also played enough his rookie year. I just thought that was interesting. They didn't get any run because, like you said, they are kind of in a competition right now. I don't know. I think the Cook talk has died down, but Pro Football Talk is saying that should have something by the beginning of next week in terms of Cook. Jumping around the offense, let's stick there. Any receivers stick out to you in this one? They didn't sit. They didn't play any of their top 5. We got a good bit of Jason Brownlee when Tim Boyle was in there. Obviously, Malik Taylor had the big bomb. Anything stand out to you from any of those guys that makes you think that, hey, maybe the Jets will keep 6 receivers?
I mean, obviously Brownlee was going to get the spotlight because of the way he's played in camp, getting some first team reps, one-handed catch, and he's had, in addition to that one, a ton of other big plays as well. I thought it was a mixed bag for him. He made some nice catches, but they did feed him a lot of targets, and there were some contested balls that he couldn't get. There was that one near the end of the first half where it was an out route, and he jumped up to get it, hit him on the chest, bounced off. It was contested, but that was catchable. So a little bit of a mixed bag, but there's plenty of time left for him to make an impression, kind of solidify what he's done in practice. So yeah, nothing really stood out. It was kind of an uneventful game for the passing attack. Did anything stand out for you with the
I'm
receivers
trying to remember
other than Brownlee?
yeah, I mean Brownlee would be the only one that he had. I'm trying to remember exactly what play it was. It was when Boyle was in. I think it was Boyle's first series, but he targeted Brownlee a number of times in that drive, and they ended up scoring a touchdown. But he caught a pass and it was honestly just the first move he made after catching it. It just jumped off the screen. And generally, anytime I see that, that's a sign of a good player. That was really the only thing of note I would say from any of these receivers. I mean, Malik Taylor adjusting to that deep ball was pretty nice. I think that's definitely a guy who's going to be on the practice squad this year. Sabo even mentioned that early in camp, the Jets came out in 12 personnel, and Taylor was one of the starting receivers with Lazard. So clearly the Jets like him. He has that experience in the offense. Um, but yeah, I mean, Xavier Gibson had the nice um, return, so that stood out. But he also muffed one at the beginning of the game that ended up pinning the Jets deep. So yeah, I think all those guys are kind of practice squad material. Brownlee's really the only one that I think has a chance to sneak onto the roster. Some of the buzz that he was getting this week, which I'll be honest, I think a lot of it's just due to the fact that he had a viral catch on that made SportsCenter top 10. I mean, I know he's been impressing in camp, but all of a sudden I see like Brian Baldinger tweeting about Jason Brownlee. I see like Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter retweeting that catch. So I think Brownlee is at the very least a practice squad receiver on this team. But if he continues to impress, if he's a star of Hard Knocks, you don't want to risk letting him go, and you keep 6 receivers. I mentioned this in the spaces of Michael. I don't know if it was one of the times you were out of it, but when they talk about Tony Adams, who didn't even play, in this preseason just to show how far he's come in terms of locking up that starting free safety job. The Jets don't want to risk anything. They're clearly confident in him to start week one. But we didn't really hear a peep about Tony Adams last preseason. Didn't hear really anything coming out of Jets camp. I don't even think he played that much in the last game. And clearly they were trying to hide him. I mean, Saul even said as much, that they were really hoping that they could get him. They were trying to keep him under wraps. And I think with Hard Knocks this year, you're not going to be able to do that. So if there's anybody who shines in training camp, the entire NFL is going to know. So with guys like Brownlee or guys like I don't know, Zach Kuntz, any of the Trey Dean, Chaz Surratt had a nice game. Any of those guys who are kind of fringe 53 man roster guys, they're gonna have to make some tough calls. So ultimately, I don't know. Nothing else really stood out about the receivers. We'll stick offense here, and then we'll go to defense. Max Mitchell. Anything from Mitchell or other offensive linemen?
I definitely got to watch Mitchell more closely. I know he was out there quite a bit. He outlasted Becton. Even, I mean, he went into the second half, right? So I'm gonna have to watch Mitchell more closely. But Tittman, I did see on. At first, I wasn't watching him, and it's very hard to see a center on a broadcast. But they showed some replays of Zach Wilson with the end zone angle, and I saw in a few of those Zach Wilson passes that Tittman had a one-on-one against a nose tackle, and he held up really well. So at least there was that. And there was one play where we fixated on him, and he threw a very accurate shotgun snap. So thumbs up there.
He had a nice
I
block on
know
that play too. Come on now.
this is preseason. This is preseason for you. But no, I want to watch those guys more closely when I rewatch it, especially Mitchell, because I mean that's your potential starting right tackle.
Sounds like
the way
it.
things are going right now. So you definitely would like to see him play well against second and third stringers. So yeah, I'll be fixating on them when I rewatch.
All right, I guess we'll move to the defense. I mean, anything else on offense? I mean, Boyle and Strevler, relatively underwhelming. Boyle, shout out, friend of the pod, seems to have a better command of the offense than Strevler, which is understandable. But neither of them really shined too much. I guess Boyle led the touchdown drive. Strevler, I was really counting on that fourth quarter Strevler magic, but didn't happen. All right, I guess we'll go to the defense. A number of guys here who really flashed to me. I mean, I guess we'll start with the first round pick, Will McDonald. I thought he looked really good out there. I mean, you could see why he might need to add some weight, but in terms of okay, can he replicate Bryce Huff's role and potentially, definitely room to grow as he gets more experience and adds some more weight? Absolutely. I mean, you saw that spin move, you saw his closing speed. Granted, he was unblocked in that one play. So what'd you make of Will McDonald and maybe some of those other young defensive linemen? I know Johnson and Clemens got some reps. Huff played a lot longer than we thought he would. What'd you make of the young D lineman?
I liked what McDonald did. I saw some good plays against the run too, which is encouraging because at some point down the line you want to see that two-way ability so he can be an every down player. So I thought he made some good plays against the run. There's the one play where they tried to run a bootleg and he was unblocked off the backside and he did not bite on the fake. He went straight at the quarterback, read it all the way, was able to make that hit and blow that play up. The spin move he threw was really clean. So yeah, he showed a lot of promise. And then what do you make of Huff playing so much? I mean, you had a good point. Maybe they're trying to get him some run game reps. But, is there the potential they're trying to showcase him for a trade? I don't know. Just throwing it out there. Hopefully not. But, yeah, it was interesting because I feel like even though the D-line is so deep and technically Huff is a backup or your fifth edge rusher, or what is he, probably fourth edge rusher in the depth chart. Even though I get that, he's just such an important player that I'm not sure why he needed to play that many reps. I wouldn't risk it. But so what do you make of Huff playing that much?
Yeah, I mean, really two things. It's either that he is in their plans for this year and they're trying to give him reps, like you said, at rundowns. Either just to develop him as a player, because I don't think that I think they have enough depth that he's not gonna have to do that regardless this year. Even if, I mean, I guess if there's a rash of injuries to the defensive line, it's possible. But when you have Jermaine Johnson and Carl Lawson and Michael Clemens, John Franklin Meyer, it doesn't seem like you'll really ever have to be in a situation where he's playing meaningful reps on first and second down. But it's possible. It's also, he showed out last year. You got Will McDonald, who maybe you want to slide into that role. So maybe it's like, all right, Huff, we want to expand your role. let's see what you can do on first and second down in some of these run situations. So I get that. I do think it is possible he's traded. It's a win now year. You're a Super Bowl contender. He's an edge rusher. He's a difference maker. He had a sack like pretty much immediately after entering the game. Um, so I wouldn't be necessarily for it, but at the same time, like, can you pay him after this year? If for how good he is in terms of even if he doesn't develop anymore, like if he's exactly what he is right now, which is a third down pass rusher, that's valuable in this league. Plus, maybe in a 3-4, he can play a little bit more. I mean, that's complete speculation. I don't know if how well he can drop into coverage, but he's a little smaller for this Jets defensive line. So, and when he came in immediately as a Jets rookie in 2020, he played in that 3-4 system with Greg Williams. So who knows? Who knows who would pay him in the offseason? So I do think there's a chance that the Jets are thinking ahead of like, we're not going to be able to pay this guy. Most likely, they will be able to get some money off the books next year. They have Will McDonald waiting in the wings, and they do have some holes in this roster, especially if Becton is injured and not even working with the starters. If there's some team that offers something of value for Huff that could maybe help the Jets this year, I could definitely see it. If they're going to try to ship Huff off for a fourth round pick, I don't know if I'd love it, but that's why they make the decisions. I think it was probably more about developing him as a player, seeing what he looks like in a bigger role. But that's how I took it. But I don't like how much he played, though, to be fair, because he is a guy that if he gets injured in this game, that does affect the regular season for the Jets. So I don't know. Yeah, other guys in the defensive line. I mean, Clemens and Johnson both had some good moments. The guys in the trenches, like you said, we kind of have to go back and watch. I did notice, first of all, Johnson 11 looks amazing. Sorry, Robbie Sabo, but that's a great look. Clemens, I noticed he had some wins. I don't know if he finished any plays, but he had some definite wins and looked good in run support. The linebackers really jumped out to me. I thought Sherwood looked really good. He forced that fumble, Florin Park Strangler. A lot of people forget with Sherwood that he tore his Achilles as a rookie, and we know from Carl Lawson that's a 2-year injury. So, this is the year that you really hope to get a lot of that athleticism back. He talked about he's added weight. Mosley's been singing his praises. They didn't re-sign Quan, and Quan only got like just over $1 million. So clearly they're high on Sherwood. So I liked what we saw there. And then Zaire Barnes and Chad Surratt both made some big plays. What did you make of the linebackers? And do you think the Jets carry 5 linebackers? Or do you think they go just with the 4 that they have?
I think it is going to be 5 because I think linebacker is a position where they could, like, linebackers are very versatile on special teams. I think those are guys who could play a lot of different roles for you because of just the build they typically have. They could do a lot of different things, whether it's kickoff return blocking or coverage on punt and kickoff return. So I think the Jets are going to value special teams after the struggles they had last year, and I think Barnes is certainly going to make it. And I think we'll see one more in addition to that, whether that's Hamza or Surratt, who really made a good push with his performance in this game. I like Sherwood. He came up with a big play forcing the fumble, which, if I'm not mistaken, did he force one in the preseason last year? I think he did, right? I might
I
be
have
wrong
no
about
idea.
that,
I can't remember.
but I'm trying to look it up right
Against
now.
who? The
But
Falcons?
I forget. I'm going to look it up and make sure.
All
But
right.
either way, you like seeing him force a big play there. And I thought he had some good tackles, getting around, making plays in space. The thing about him replacing Quan that's interesting is I think he's a much different kind of linebacker than Quan. The thing that made Quan really valuable to the Jets last year is how much of a wrecking ball he was. Even if and he did make some big stops himself, but even when he wasn't making tackles, it was just the way that he would lower his shoulder and take on blocks and just create lanes for his teammates to get to the football because he was just eating up so much space and creating penetration. And I don't know if Sherwood is that kind of player. I actually think he's closer to what Mosley does, which is kind of sit back, play a little more patient, let it develop in front of him, and then go pursue, make the plays. So it will be interesting to see how Sherwood's different skill set plays in Quan's role.
Yeah, no, you kind of mentioned Quan being the wrecking ball. I think we were actually watching Dalvin Cook tape.
Yeah,
And we just noticed in the Jets game, a lot of what Quan was doing, like you said, it's not just being a wrecking ball in terms of blowing up plays, but willingness to approach contact, to go towards the blocker. And even if he gets blocked, he's going to put that blocker on his back heel, and that affects the play. And, Quincy hits really hard, but because he's a little smaller, I don't know if he can necessarily do what Kwon was able to do in terms of driving blockers back. And so you want to see Sherwood do that. But like you said, I think he's been Mosley's understudy for 2 years now. And if they don't bring Mosley back next year, if they do move on from him and free, I think like $8 million or something. If he has a good year, he could slide into that role. But yeah, Surratt looked good. I think he left with an injury. The other guy, I'm trying to remember his. I don't want to mess up his. You get into the guys that you don't really know too much about, but I think it's Claudin Chirilius or something. I'll look it up. But he was flying around too. I will, even with the backups, that all gas no brake mentality, you definitely saw. Even if they blew it in the end of the game, but like backup, their fourth stringers were hitting hard and flying around the football, so that was nice to see. But yeah, I was encouraged what we saw from the linebackers. Really liked what we saw from Surratt. We'll see how healthy he is in the rest of the preseason. But it does kind of seem, like you said, once you raise the special teams point to me, I think you're right. I think they do keep 5 linebackers, and that's one of the few roster battles on this team right now to keep an eye out for. DBs, anything of note? I mean, I know Craig James got cooked for that touchdown. I think Bryce Hall. Did Bryce Hall do anything?
There was one play he got pushed off for an OPI. That's all I remember.
Right.
And I know Eccles left the game. I think he had a hip injury.
Yeah, Eccles.
So we'll see the
Eccles had a tough start.
severity on that.
Eccles had a tough start because he had the penalty. Which, by the way, you remember this in the first quarter? How they had the illegal formation, and then which is a 5-year penalty, and then Eccles hit him out of bounds a little late, and that's 15. And so
Yeah, I do remember that.
Threw that out. Why is that the case? You can line up illegally, and then if you get hit hard,
Yeah, that was so odd. Like, I don't. At the very least, they should offset, just redo it. But I think it doesn't make sense that if the play shouldn't have happened because it was illegal, why are they getting a plus because of a penalty after that on a play that should have been negated?
Yeah,
so that was weird.
Doesn't make any sense. But I thought Trey Dean had some nice tackles. Cruikshank got plenty of run as well. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really remember too much from the DBs. Again, I mean, we'll go back and watch this game, and then on Monday's pod we'll have probably a little bit more to say. But outside of that, Michael, studs and duds, and then we'll get out of here. We've probably talked about some of them, but let's just go through who are kind of your stars from this game.
I would say, Becton, I think, stood out to me. Just it was pretty much a flawless 7 snaps. So again, 7 snaps, but flawless.
If he gives us 7 snaps every game, that's already improvement.
That's already an improvement. Maybe he could be like a relief pitcher.
Dude,
just
Becton,
clutch drive, throw him in there, and he's ready to go.
Becton as a swing tackle, just coming in motion on run plays, would be pretty electric. So
just put him at tight end.
Yeah, pretty much the George Fant role.
Yeah, I think that could work. So I would put Becton in there because it was good to just finally see him back out there and play well with pretty much no issues. So that was good. Well, I guess we shouldn't say no issues, but he did say after the game that it was just playing it cautious, didn't trust the turf, as you said. So not a huge concern.
But I will say, but the fact that he's still feeling the knee, quote unquote, I even noticed it before he left. And granted, I think it was the play that he kind of was feeling his knee out. But I was watching him, and I was just looking at his knees in comparison to his body. I mean, he's just such a big guy. Just he was shaking it out. He looked light on it. He was kind of like not gimpy, but just it looked weak, I guess, is the best way to. I mean, when you're going to support a 6'7", 350-pound man. His knees just looked a little small, and I could tell he was feeling uncomfortable with it. So it is still a red flag.
Yeah, that's fair.
What are some other? Who else gets a gold star? You giving Zach Wilson a gold star or silver star?
Mm-hmm. That gold seems excessive. Silver,
right,
maybe.
If they scored a touchdown on that drive that he had the 57-yard touchdown or the 57-yard pass, I'm feeling differently about that performance, right? I mean, the 57-yard pass to me was. In terms of what you're getting out of a Hall of Fame game, I'm looking at your Hall face. Of Fame you don't seem too
standards.
You don't seem too
enthused.
No,
are you saying I wasn't impressed with that throw? That was amazing. I definitely flipped out at that throw.
Basically, just rolled your eyes.
I was like, "Oh, let's go!" I rolled my eyes.
Yes, you're tired. It's
I'm probably just falling asleep.
12:14.
Is
I
what it is.
promise,
It's
Michael, we'll get you
12:15
out of here
here.
quickly. All right. Who else?
That's
Fine. How
beautiful.
about
Don't get
this?
me wrong.
Anybody else gets a gold star that we haven't talked about tonight? I do have one. If you're searching for it,
Special
there
teams,
we go.
the
That's what I was going to get to.
kickers,
Kick.
Morstead and Zerline. No controversy whatsoever. Is that the
Don't
first
forget
time?
Hennessy.
In when was the last time? Tom Hennessy, of course. I may or may not have ordered a Tom Hennessy jersey.
That's true.
We'll have
That's
to
a great jersey.
see on that.
You got the throwback Hennessy
Yeah,
coming.
I thought it was a great jersey. I mean, it's a great, unique last name. I like unique last names.
You drink a lot of
Number
Hennessy?
42. Pretty cool. I cannot say that I do, but regardless, cool name.
Damn.
And, who was a Tom Hennessy jersey? And also, he's just signed a long-term extension, so he's going to be around. Don't have to worry about, player getting traded any year after I get a jersey.
He's pretty
so,
safe in terms of
pretty
you're
safe.
not going to have to worry about him not being on the roster.
He's been on our podcast.
That's true. He's a guy who could.
He's probably the best long snapper, or one of them. So, I mean, it's really should be near the top of the jersey list.
Would we really know?
That he's the best long snapper?
Yeah, do you think every fan base just thinks
he did get the highest. No, I think he did get the highest guarantee ever for a long snapper. So I think that kind of would suggest that he's viewed that way.
Best long snapper in the league. We should have him back on. We're just waiting for Zerline to complete the special teams trio.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I guess obviously other gold stars I would give to would be. I thought Tippmann looked really nice. I mean, like you said, we got to rewatch these guys in the interior to really accurately grade them. But in the action that I did see, I didn't see the pocket collapsing as much as. I mean, it's preseason, but as much as we've gotten accustomed to, so I'll give that to Tippmann. I would give a gold star to McDonald, Surratt, and Chirilis. I would probably give one as well. Yeah, it's tough. I got to go rewatch. I kind of want to give one to Trey Dean, but I don't know if that's. I have to see what he looked like in coverage. They did give up the touchdown in the fourth quarter, but he had a nice hit.
Also, I got another gold star.
Yeah, hit me.
I don't know if you're going to agree with this one.
Oh boy,
DeMarcus Ware.
Terrible. No, what for the national anthem?
Yeah,
you give him a gold star for that anthem performance? Are you out of your mind?
Yeah,
I'm supposed to be the optimistic one of this podcast. You're bringing reality.
Considering the grading curve.
What the fuck? No, it was terrible.
Give him a gold star. No, come on.
Look, it's
former NFL player doing the national anthem.
I applaud him. I applaud him for that.
You gotta respect that.
That takes some balls. He's a hell of a player. It's his day. Also, I'd imagine he is better than what we saw because, it's national television. He doesn't want to become a meme. He's probably a little nervous. Hasn't sang in front of a crowd. I give him all the props in the world for doing it. But that was a weak national anthem performance. And he really milked it too. It went on for like 5 minutes.
I tuned in right in the middle of him doing it. I didn't know it was him. I was like, that guy really looks like DeMarcus Ware. And then I found out that was. It's like, oh wow.
I had the pregame on. I was so excited. I threw on my Zach Wilson jersey. I was ready to go. And then I had to sit through like 4 minutes of that anthem, which was just a little pitchy. And just he was doing the hand.
It was slow paced.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
He really milked the last few lines of that song too. It felt like those went on.
Definitely drew it out.
Yeah. So no, I could never do that. I suck at singing, and I know I suck at singing, but I could never do that. So I guess I applaud that. I don't know if that's gold star worthy. We don't give out participation trophies on this podcast. All right, any duds?
Duds?
Our Twitter Spaces?
Did any stand out to you? Yeah, that for sure.
Your mic?
That for sure. My mic, my internet connection, or whatever you want to blame.
Man, I don't
think it was the internet.
That was tough.
But
it was fun. That was fun. I liked who we talked to and stuff. It was just hard because you were dipping out every 5 seconds.
Do any stand out to you in terms of duds right off the bat?
Let me think. As soon as Xavier Gibson muffed that punt, I was about to tweet it, and I was like, that's a little mean, but I was going to tweet Xavier Gibson, your dream is over. But then he did return the kick at the end of the half for like 50 yards. Gotta go.
I don't know if there's any important players that really struggled in a way that stood out.
Nobody important really struggled. I want to go back and watch like JJ's reps. Like I saw him get some nice push.
Yeah, he would be cool to watch.
But I think he was going up against DeJuan Jones the entire time, who's a big offensive lineman. tough matchup. But for a Hall of Fame preseason game, you're hoping that JJ could maybe make a little bit more push. But again, I got to go rewatch it and see exactly what was happening. And I only think he played like the first series anyway. I feel like we got to give some to Craig James for giving up that touchdown. What do you make of the whole like the lights going off and them continuing the game? It kind of felt like they should have called it.
Yeah, I think they should have called it. There was a guy in our spaces who was saying that, and I agree. I mean, it's an extra preseason game anyway, so it's not like it would be different if this wasn't the Hall of Fame game because I think every team does want the 3 preseason games for evaluation time, but this is gravy anyway. So I think for safety purposes, you would rather just not go back in cold. And even when they did come back to the game, they didn't really give them much extra time to warm up from the point where they're like, all right, we're playing this game. So, yeah, I don't know if that was the greatest move. And I forget if it was before or after that when they announced that Surratt and Eccles had went out. But, yeah, I'm not sure about that. But, yeah, I agree. I think probably it would be safer to just call it.
Any thoughts on the? I promised this last thing. Any thoughts on the last? On the coaching, play calls, anything like that?
I mean, it was very vanilla play calling. I think it's a
It's our first look at the
it's
offense.
concerning. It's concerning going into the season how they blow a lead and a lot of penalties, vanilla play calling. So I'd be
I have
concerned.
seen tweets like that. And we also have somebody in the spaces who was like, I know it's the backups, but I don't like what we're seeing from the defense. And it's kind of just like the defense. We said it 2 years ago. You're gonna play to the level of player you have with this defense. Like it very much emphasizes the talent on the field. Things are simple, so in some ways, I would say it makes it a little easier for defenders. But we saw it in 2021. If you're trying to play a really vanilla defense, um, and you can't win with four, and you don't have the difference makers in the back end, it looks a hell of a lot different than when you have the game records that you're able to cut loose in the defensive line like the Jets have. You have Sauce and DJ Reed in the back end. Um, Overall, not too much you could take away from this game. Other than that, I thought the Jets looked prepared and they had some good moments. I like what we saw from Zach and Becton. We're definitely going to get a lot more in the next game. You'll be at the next game, which is 10 days from now
Yep.
or
Yep.
9 days. So yeah, I guess we can wrap it up here. I'll do the plugs, Michael. If you have anything else you want to say, please have something. You can shoot it after the plug. Let me do
I
the
don't
plugs.
have
Let me do the
anything
plugs.
except a
Think,
big yawn. Maybe I
think,
can give you that.
think of something from this game. You have like 20 seconds. Follow us at
All
CYJ
right.
Pod on X. That sounds gross. Myself, Ben W.
Just say
Blessington.
Twitter.
I think we're gonna stick
I
with
think
Twitter.
we'll stick with that.
Myself, Ben W. Blessington, Michael _ Nania. Go to jetsxfactor.com. Best place to go for Jets content. Subscribe to the Jets X Factor YouTube. And if you can, please rate, review, or subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. That helps us out a lot. With that said, Michael, last thoughts.
I love the all white uniforms. Thought they looked
Ah,
great
come on, a
on
real
prime
thought. A
time.
real thought.
The uniforms too much of a cop out.
I was looking for I can dive into the uniforms with you, but I was hoping for a real. I guess you're right. We'll be back on Monday. We'll been able to watch the film, but overall, I guess if you're watching on YouTube or if not, tweet us. But let us know what you think about this game. I read the comments. I let them know if they're safe for Michael to read if there's enough hate or not. All right, we're gonna wrap it up. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday. Go Jets.